All right, we're live. Willstar, thanks for coming on the show.
You guys got it. Appreciate you guys inviting me.
Now, if people don't know who Willstar is, and well, you've been living under a rock because if you're on Facebook at all, his videos have been shared all over Facebook, and he has a very unique way of telling encounter stories. In that he tells his encounter stories and accompanies them with Google Earth uh, graphics and does commentary behind it, and it's quite unique, and that's why we asked him on the show because his approach is quite unique. It's not just lazily telling a story with just a just some kind of backdrop. He actually puts a lot of work into it and shows us where these encounters happened, and he's really a master at Google Earth, and I didn't even actually know that Google Earth could zoom in that far because I've used Google Earth before in my hometown and stuff, and you get a blurry um, image from like 100 foot above, and it doesn't really show you much. But the videos you seem to present, you can zone right in there, right into where these encounters happened. And how did you come across getting that information to where these encounters happened? Did it take a lot of research?
Well, some of the videos take a long time. I'm talking hours and hours and like 8, 12 hours to pinpoint the location. But some of them, I could find them right away. So what happened was I was researching these episodes or these encounters, I guess you could call it. And I'm like, well, where did these happen? They're talking about it, but where exactly did this happen? So I researched and found the first location. And I'm like, you know what? I think other people would like to see these locations also. If I wanted to see them, there's got to be other people out there that want to see these locations. So that's what I did. I started finding these locations, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make a video on this, and that's what I did. And I started making videos on it, and people started liking it. And the first videos I made weren't very good. I mean, I got to admit, but the more I do, I guess the better I'm getting at it with the editing and the images and all that stuff. So that's how I did it, and that's how I got into doing the Bigfoot stuff. Well, my own encounter is really what got me into it, and then looking at the stories. But I was fascinated about being able to find these locations using Google Earth, Cordell. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I just figured, hey, it's got to be other people out there that want to see these locations, and clearly, I guess they're liking it. So that's how it happened.
Now,
Yeah,
go ahead, Dave.
I'll tell you. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Your Google Map thing is, I found pretty unique to your channel. I mean, some people have utilized that a little bit, but you've really taken it and ran with it. And I mean, you did the video about the Albert Austin abduction, and I've always wondered about, man, where that at? You should be able to trace that. And anyway, and you kind of went around with your Google Earth, just putting together some kind of scenarios where he might have been,
Sure.
So yeah, that's I get. And the other one you did about the Patterson Gimlin film location. You said that what a lot of people were saying was the wrong location. How did you come about finding the actual location of that film?
Well, I'll tell you what, I did a lot of research on that. And also I reached out to a guy named Todd Prescott, and he has a channel called Sasquatch. I don't want to get it wrong.
Chronicles.
Sasquatch Chronicles. Is that what it is?
Archives.
Archives.
Sasquatch
That's
Archives.
what it is. Sasquatch Archives.
Excellent channel. Excellent.
And I reached out to him, and he was more than willing to help me. And he put me in touch with some other people that actually go and visit that site a lot. And they gave me the information that I needed. So I have to give them credit. And I can't, right off the top of my mind, I can't remember the name of that podcast and website, but it was through Todd Prescott. Todd Prescott is the one. And literally anytime I need any information, because he's connected with a lot of people, and I'll reach out to Todd, and he's more than willing to help me, with this information if I need some. Because he's really digging what I'm doing too. He tells me to keep doing it. He's like, hey man, no one else is really out there doing this, showing these locations, and it's good. It's great that we can see these with our own eyes where this stuff is happening. So he's more than willing to help me. So that's how that happened right there, as far as the Patterson location. So That's how that happened.
Yeah, we need to try to get Todd on here sometime if we can,
Yeah,
Cornell.
his
channel is one of my all-time favorites just because I really love those old interviews and such as that historical stuff that he specializes in. So,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I've heard his name. I didn't realize he was connected to that. Now, well, so tell me the story about what got you actually started, because one day you just decide. It seems like you were doing a lot of other videos. You were doing a lot of gaming videos. Then you were doing a lot of like landscaping videos, which were really cool too.
Yeah.
And then you started doing Bigfoot videos. And you seem to start off like, you hit the ground running, because the very first video was really well done too. So what, and I know you had your own encounter, we'll get into that, but what got you into actually doing Bigfoot primarily?
Okay, well, we will rewind here a second, and I'll tell you what got me into YouTube, if you like.
Yeah.
I hurt my shoulder at work, so I was off of work for a while, and I couldn't do anything, and I was bored, so I started playing a video game called Red Dead Redemption 2, if anybody's ever heard of that.
Oh, yeah, I have it.
Yeah, me too. And I got stuck at a part, and I couldn't figure out how to get past this. I think I was looking for a horse or something. I don't know what it was. So I Googled how to do this, and a video popped up, and I watched the video, and I'm like, wait a minute, because I really didn't ever get into YouTube very much. I've only been into YouTube for a couple of years, and I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's making videos on how to play a video game. And then I contacted him, I messaged him, and he said he was making money doing it. And I'm like, wait, they're paying people to do this? Because like I said, I didn't know anything about it. And so I started Red Dead Redemption video game, and he's like, man, you got a good personality, people are going to like you, you should make video games. So I did, and I started doing that. And then I started watching other YouTube videos, and I got down the rabbit hole, as you know how that goes. And I found this place that here in Strongsville, Ohio, called Ohio Fish Rescue, and they have 200,000 gallons worth of aquariums and stuff where they save fish and all this other stuff. And I watched a live stream of theirs one time, and they were asking for volunteers. And I'm like, hey, I live 15 minutes away. I'll go out there and hang out. So I went out there and I met them, and they're like, man, you should make videos yourself. Come on out here and record and put some videos on your channel. So I started doing that. And that's where you see like the koi pond videos and stuff on my channel, because my buddies out there, Rich and Josh, allowed me to do it. And then after I started doing videos, and they were like, man, you're pretty good at the editing, and you're pretty good at, on camera, and you're pretty good at making the videos. How about we start a second channel? We're going to do Ohio Fish Rescue behind the scenes, and we're going to have you do it, because you know how to do video. I'm like, wow, you really want me to do your second channel? And they were like, yeah, because you're really good and people really like you. So I started doing their second channel for a while, and I built that up a little bit. And then I got sick. I started getting migraines where I couldn't leave the house anymore. So they had to find somebody else to do it. So they got another guy doing it now. And I'm like, that's cool. I got him up and going, and, everybody's happy. And I'm still friends with them. I go hang out with them. But then I started watching YouTube because I was home all the time with the migraine. And, I had my own personal Bigfoot encounter. So I typed that in because I wanted to research some stories. And I'm like, man, there's a lot of people making these videos, but no one's showing where these locations are, so it clicked in my mind. Hey, you can start making videos. People are saying you're good at the editing and you're good at making videos, and you could show these locations to people and they might like it. I just took a chance, and it seems like it's working out. So that's basically how I started doing the Bigfoot. I went from the gaming to the Ohio Fish Rescue to the Bigfoot, and now I'm doing Bigfoot basically all the time. And I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. I love the Bigfoot encounter stories. I really do. So,
yeah, I was wondering when you were doing the koi pond stuff, I'm like, is he working for those guys? Because they must be getting really pissed off with him if he's just standing there making videos all day. I was like wondering how that worked, but they actually asked you to.
Yeah, they're like, hey, Willstar, you're here, you're helping us, you're a good personality, you're a good guy, like we really like you. If you want to make some videos and put on your channel, maybe people will go to your channel. And I'm like, all right, I'll try it out. And I tried it out, and they loved me, and then the rest is history. So that's how that worked out for me.
Well, would you care to tell us about your Bigfoot encounter that you had?
That was the next question.
Sure, we could do that. All right. This was back in the year 2000, guys. So, it was a while ago. It's about 3 hours away from me down south of Columbus. I'm up by Cleveland, And this happened down in a place called Logan, Ohio, at a cabin where, you know, you and your significant other go and hang out for the weekend. It's like fireplace and hot tub and like, you know, just secluded place in the woods. So basically we go down there and, you know, they got a lot of outdoors things you can do and places like caves and like cliffs and all kinds of beautiful things to go check out. So we went down there. Friday night, nothing happened. Saturday, we went out, you know, during the day we came back and we stopped at a store and I bought some country ribs and some potatoes and stuff, and we started cooking them over the fire outside. They have
like
a fire.
heaven.
It is, absolutely is. And the time of the year we went was the end of October, early November, when all the leaves are changing. Well, you know, you're in the Northeast Cornell, so you know how that happens. So all that beauty was going on. So we were at the right time. And so we're sitting around the fire and I'm cooking and it's like getting dark a little bit, you know, like the sun is down, but you can still see light like shining off the clouds, kind of, if you know what I'm talking about, that kind of time of the day. So we're cooking and I'm sitting there and all of a sudden from far away, like in the woods, deep in the woods, you could hear someone walking, like taking 2 steps. I'm like, and then they would stop. And then like 10 seconds later, it would stop. I'm like, well, and it kept getting a little bit closer and closer. And I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes, it kept going and it was getting closer and closer and closer. And my fiance at the time, I'm like, do you hear that? She's like, yeah, what is that? And I'm like, it sounds like there's somebody walking or something in the woods. Like, but we're in the middle of nowhere. Who would be out there, right? So literally it kept coming, it kept coming, it kept coming. And it came up to the edge of the tree line and it went behind a tree. And it's light enough where you can still see like the tree line and you can see like silhouettes. And I could see it like doing this behind the tree, like looking like this. And she's like, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know what it is. So basically I got a stick from the fire. Well, she got scared. So I was going to walk her inside. She's like, let's go inside. I don't, you know, but to go inside, we had to get closer to where this thing was because the cabin was closer to where it was than from where the fire was. So I grabbed the stick out of the fireplace. It's, I don't know, probably about that big. I don't trying to get on camera, probably about that big and about that big, you know what I mean? But it was only barely burning at the end. You know, it wasn't like a torch that was lit with oil rags or something. So I carried it over there because I didn't have a flashlight. And at the time in 2000, you know, you don't have all that stuff on your cell phone. I think I probably even like had a pager back then, you know, not even a cell phone, a pager. So I'm walking with this stick and I walk her in and it's like going back and forth like this. And I started yelling. I'm like, hey, because at first I thought it was a person walking in the woods. I'm like,
some pervert.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like coming in the middle of the woods like that, and it's just doing this behind a tree. But it was huge, so I thought it was like maybe a big football play. I don't know. In my mind, I didn't really know what it was. All I know is that it was messing up my time, right, with my girl. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm telling you what, if you don't say something or show yourself, I'm going to blow your freaking head off. And like, I raised my arm up like I had a gun and I was going to, like I had the torch in this hand or the stick in this hand. And I'm like, I'm about to blow your head off. And I counted down. I'm like, if you don't say nothing, I'm going to start shooting at you, dude. And it just kept doing this and doing this. And like, I'm like, oh my God, like what in the world? So literally I saw, and it was huge and it kept doing this. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm counting down and I'm going to start shooting at you. And it didn't say anything. I took the stick I had and I like whipped it, right? Like, and it hit some trees and bushes like a little bit short of where it was and it fell down and stuff like that. And I'm like, you better get out of here. I yelled at it like it was like a rabid dog or something. I'm like, get out of here, you know, like that. Like, and literally it turned away around and just like started walking real slowly. But by that time, it had gotten a little bit darker, but because I was closer. So if it was still a little bit later, I would have been able to see it better. But, you know, it was like 5 minutes later. And so it was a little bit darker, but I could see the silhouette and it was huge, guys. I'm telling you, it was huge. I mean, massive. And it walked away like real. And so I go back inside and I'm like, I can't believe what just happened. She's like, what was that? That wasn't a person. And I'm like, I know it wasn't a person. At first I thought it was some crazy dude, but I know it wasn't a person. It was way too big and it just wasn't answering me when I was threatening or whatever. So we go back in the cabin. Well, she was already in the cabin. So we go in there and we pull all the blinds, guys, because we're in the middle of the woods. You know what I mean? There's nothing else around. We pull all the blinds. We didn't go out onto the hot tub that night on the patio or nothing. We were worried. We were like, what in the world's going on, you know? So that's my encounter. And then like when I came home, I researched it a little bit. I'm like, what's going on in Southern Ohio? And I find out all these other encounters that happened down there, like at Salt Fork State Park. And we're not far from there. We're probably 45 minutes from Salt Fork where we were. So, that's what happened. And it turned me into like a person that had seen old, like In Search of shows and things like that, and be like, you know what? That could really be true, because I'm not a stupid person. I'm not falling for all kinds of things. You know what I mean? I don't believe in a lot of stupid things, but I can also use my mind to be like, hey, there's enough land out there and enough wilderness out there where a creature could be out there surviving, and so I did my own research, and I'm like, man, there's a lot of episodes happening down here, and that's probably exactly what happened to me. And then I put 2 and 2 together, how big it was, and then it wouldn't answer me when I threatened to shoot his head off. And I'm like, yeah, that. Now, to be fair, it wasn't like high noon sunshine where I could see everything, I mean, but what else could it have been? We were in the middle of the woods, and, like if it was a person and I'm threatening to shoot it, don't you think they would have been like, oh no, don't. I'm some big
You
6 foot
think so?
6'10" football player out here in the middle of the woods, so that's what
Now
really
you mentioned that was in 2000.
Yeah.
There was actually in Oklahoma from 99 into 2000 a rash of Bigfoot sightings that were going public about that time as well. You mentioned you didn't have a cell phone. I had a bag phone at that time. Remember those?
Yeah.
But the one thing I can say for it, right now down there where I go, I have no cell phone signal for at least about a 30-minute drive out of there. With that bag phone, I could go into those places and have signal.
I'll tell you what, I would give anything to have a phone back then, because I could have got some footage, especially with the light on the phone, how they have now. I literally would have walked over there with the light. I mean, thinking back at it, like I was kind of scared too. Like the girl my fiance at the time, she was freaking out. She was like, "Oh my God, what is that? What is that? It's not a person." And I took her inside, and I'm standing there like yelling because I don't, I'm like, and to be honest with you, I was a little frightened too. We're in the middle of the woods, right? And I'm like, what in the world?
Even if it was a person, it's so
yeah. So I'm like, what in the world's going on here? Like we're here alone basically, and even if it is a person walking up, it's like not a good situation. You're thinking like Jason from the movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what in the world? But it was just so big, and the situation where we were, the location, and really, if you watch the video where I put out my encounter, there's really nothing in like close by. There's a farm way over on the other side of the woods, and that's it. There's really nothing else in those woods, and it came up from like through this location where it's kind of like a ravine. So it came up the ravine, like it was just something that I'm never going to forget, and it definitely changed my life.
What's this video called on your channel? I'll link it after this. Actually,
my personal encounter, my personal Bigfoot encounter is what
I'll link
is.
That.
Yeah. So I tell the whole story and show you exactly where everything is and all the location and all that. Yeah, it was just now, to be fair, there's I think 3 cabins there. We were in the more secluded one, but the other one, it was like an old couple. They were like in their 70s. Okay. And even in my encounter in the video, I tell we had the radio on, but we had it on so low, like literally you could barely hear it when we were sitting there. Because you don't want to have the radio blasting and disturbing people. Yeah. And when I'd walked into the cabin earlier while I was cooking to grab some utensils or something, I forgot what it was I grabbed, but I couldn't even hear it anymore when I got to the door. That's how low it was. So people sometimes ask me, well, how could you hear it if you had the radio on? It's because I had the radio on so low that I could hear everything, and you could hear it coming through the leaves, because like I was telling you, it's
October, time of day or the year,
late of October, early November, where there are leaves still on the ground, and it was kind of dry, so you could hear them coming. You could hear it coming through the leaves, So.
And what about features?
How tall
What about how tall was it? And when it walked away, what was the back like?
Okay, guys, I played basketball my whole life. I played basketball with 7 foot tall people, right? Like on my team and all that other stuff. 7 foot tall easily. Like that's why I'm thinking like it couldn't really be a person out there in the woods that are 7 foot tall. You know what I mean? 6'10" to 7'2" is what I'm trying to say, right in that area. Okay. And it was huge. Like I said, when I tell you it was huge, like there was a tree probably about that big, and it was standing on the side of it like this, and it, like you could see on both sides, and it was like playing peekaboo, like kind of like peeking behind a tree like this, and I'm like, like what in the world? If that's a person, I'm about to shoot you. You better say something. And it really didn't say anything.
Somebody has a question here.
I literally contacted those people. I'm going to go back there. I was trying to go back this fall, but they had already had the cabin booked, and they wouldn't let me. I'm like, well, I only need like 30 minutes, an hour. They're like, no, you can't. You got to book it for 2 days. I'm like, all right. So I'm going to go back actually in the spring and go and visit that place.
Can you hike in there and just walk around and not have to stay there?
I guess you could, but it's private property, and it'd be kind of the same scenario with me, right? Like someone walking up on somebody, like, what in the world? Like, who's that coming up? If so I wouldn't really want to do that. But if you guys check out the video, you'll see on the Google Maps where it is, and I show you where the creature came up that little draw. I guess you could call it a holler or something like that. But yeah,
what's that?
That's
noise?
Not me. I don't think that's me.
So I'm just bringing a couple of questions up here. They're always good to.
Yeah, Salt Fork is an unbelievable area for this stuff to occur. There's a lot of occurrences that happen at Salt Fork State Park. And like I said, we're about 45 minutes from there. We were at a place called Cabins in the Pines is the place. If anybody want to look it up for themselves, it's called Cabins in the Pines. And there's some, like, Old Man's Cave is one of the attractions, and like Conkle's Hollow, like some really beautiful places, but a lot of caves around there too. So, that kind of matches up with people saying that Bigfoot like to be around places where there's caves and a lot of forest.
Now, Jeff Harding has a question here, and Jeff Harding was one of my favorite guests. He had an amazing encounter, and he's doing some amazing research with Doug Hychak. So,
are there? No, I didn't smell anything because, to be honest with you, we were cooking that food, and I was smelling that, and no, it was quiet. It didn't make any noises. Prince, the next day, I went to look, but it was all covered with leaves. The area was covered with leaves, so there was really nothing. And you know how they have, like, I don't know if you call it a registry book, like where you sign in like the next day telling you how your experience was and stuff. And I went back and looked, like, is there anybody else? And literally somebody else had said something about, like, something came up through the woods the other night, and we don't know what it was, but it wasn't a person. We don't know what it was. And I'm like, man, somebody else had the same encounter that I did, so.
Oh, man, if you'd have had a cell phone and taken a picture of that.
Amen.
Amen. That would have been awesome.
That's what I'm saying. Like, too bad it happened in the year 2000. If it happened now, guys, I probably would have ran over there with my camera on with the light. You know what I mean? Like, trying to see what it was. You know what I mean? But
even today, Will, I went for a 6-mile hike, and I was walking down this trail, and I haven't seen any deer, and it's deer season, but I haven't seen any deer in these woods. And all of a sudden, just in front of me, these 4 deer just ran right across the trail in front of me, 50 feet away, and ran up to the top of the ridge and hung around for like 30 seconds. And I got my phone out of my pocket. I was listening to I was actually listening to something the Sasquatch about. So I had to disable that, and I was doing Facebook Live. So I brought Facebook up and hit live, and by the time I got all of that up, they were gone. It happened so fast. So even if you do have all of that stuff at your disposal.
Yeah, because a lot of people leave comments on my videos like, well, why didn't anybody take a picture?
Yeah,
something like that is happening. Really, the first thing that pops in your mind isn't, well, let me take a picture. It's like, oh my God, what is that? You know what I mean? And some people are afraid for their lives when they see these things. They're like, oh my, it's so big. Yeah. The place is called Cabins in the Pines in Logan, Ohio. We were staying in the northernmost cabin. I think there's like 3 cabins there, maybe 4. I forget. I think there's 3 or 4. But we were in the most northernmost cabin, and there was only one other couple staying in cabin at that weekend, and they were, like I said, like in their 70s at the time, because we had spoken to them earlier in the day. because we were asking them what they wanted, if they needed anything from the store, things like that. And they were a nice couple, and it was just us, you know.
I was watching a TV show here the other night. I think it was one of those like These Woods Are Haunted or something like that.
Sure.
And one of the encounters was mentioned in Salt Fork.
Yeah, Ohio is a hot spot, David. And
Right,
I don't.
the Ohio Grass Man and all that.
Yeah, Ohio is definitely a hot spot, and I have my own theory on why that is. I'm thinking that maybe it's because of the Ohio River there. Like if they're coming down from the north, like they run into the Ohio River, and they're like, well, you know, they're supposed to be able to swim, so it won't stop them. But they find the woods and stuff there, and they're like, you know what, this is a good place here to hang out for a while. There's a lot of wildlife and things like that. So that's my theory on why Southern Ohio there is a hot spot. I mean,
Well,
other
if
than
you've
that,
read go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say that's my theory on why Ohio's a hot spot. Really,
John Green actually, in a very thick book he wrote called "The Sasquatch: The Apes Among Us."
sure.
If you ever get a chance to get that, it's very big, and there is a chapter in it entitled "Apes Underwater" that actually documents a lot of these sightings were in Alaska, actually, of people seeing a Sasquatch swimming. And I seen one years ago that somebody claimed to have seen one swimming from one of these islands in Broken Bow Lake down in southeast Oklahoma. So, I mean,
Yeah, I've ran into. I mean, I've seen
feasible,
encounters
totally.
where they're in the water. Also, I have a video on my channel where a guide was taking people on a fishing trip, and literally a Bigfoot was swimming in the river trying to catch fish, and they literally hooked the Bigfoot with their rod, and you know, so yeah, there's a lot of people that say that they see them swimming also.
Now that is some fish story there, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell your wife, you catch anything? Well, let me tell you about this.
Yeah,
Hold my beer.
the big one that got away.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, you mentioned earlier about it being, thought it might have been a human stalking you
Yeah.
out there. To me, that's more worrisome than a curious Bigfoot.
I agree with that. And like I told you, that's why I was kind of really afraid. I'm like, at first, like, is this some kind of lunatic coming up to the woods about to try to kill us or something? But what really changed my mind was the size and the girth and the width. And when I threatened it, like I'm about to shoot your head off unless you say something. And I counted down, guys. I'm like 10, 9, 8, and it just kept doing this, like behind the tree, like this. And then I threw that stick at it, and I'm like, "Get out of here!" Like you would yell at like a dog or something, and literally turned and slowly walked away the same way it came back. And I'm like, man. And then I went inside.
In all fairness, you should be armed anyway in that situation.
Yeah.
If you're going away with your lady. I mean, I live in Massachusetts, and I'm an immigrant. And even if I go on a short hike, I will bring my 9mm.
Sure.
Just in case. In case. But like Ohio, I think is probably a lot less strict than Massachusetts. You don't have concealed carry. You can probably have open carry, right?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't have a weapon. These are my weapons. But,
Yeah, you're a sports guy. That's why.
Yeah. I grew up. That's where the channel nickname came from. Is a nickname of me growing up playing sports. I made all the all-star teams and stuff. So I was called Willstar growing up. So
That's
it just
cool.
carried over to YouTube.
And I will reiterate, guys, I'm sure a lot of Willstar is the best Bigfoot channel you don't know about. Is that the quote?
That's the quote.
Yeah,
there.
check his channel out. It's very different than all the other channels that we're hit with. I'm not saying anything bad about those, but Will does a really good job in telling these encounter stories and bringing us to the location via Google Earth. I mean, it's quite fascinating to watch. I don't know if it would work on audio only. That's the only thing. You have to. Well, I mean, it would, but it's a lot better if you actually. Now, where do you get these encounters from?
A lot of research. I find a lot of these things online, or sometimes viewers like hook me up with telling me, "Hey, look at this website and check this out," or like Todd Prescott, like he helps me out with some things, and I'm doing a lot of research to find these stories, and I only like to put the ones out there that are really fascinating, you know. And what I tell the viewers that watch the stories is, I'm not here to tell you what to believe, you know. I'm just here to give you the encounter. I try to make it entertaining for you, and I try to show you the exact location where these things happen, so you can picture yourself. Like, and when I'm giving you the encounter, you can see, you know, like, oh, well, there is the hill right there.
Yeah.
There is the stream right there they're talking about. There is the cliff right there that they're talking about. So you can put it all together yourself. And I don't think there's very many other channels doing that. So that's,
I don't think there's any.
yeah. So that's kind of why I wanted to do that, because I wanted to stand out from all the other Bigfoot channels, you know, because there's a lot, you know, there's a lot of competition out there. And I'm like, you know what? I want to give the audience something else that they're not getting anywhere else. So I try to keep it as entertaining as I can. Like you were saying earlier, there's a lot of channels out there that'll just put like 1 or 2 pictures through the whole video while they're recording or while they're giving you the encounter. To me, that's like, I'm clicking off of that, you know, like,
unrelated sometimes.
Yeah. So like when I'm telling a story, if they talk about a brown bear, like, why not show a picture of a brown bear? If they're talking about certain kind of gun that people don't know about, show the gun that they don't know. You know what I mean? So they're like, oh, well, there's the gun that they're talking about. That's the type, you know. And I just try to make it as entertaining as I can for the viewers.
Well, it's very obvious that you've put a lot of work into this. That's what I admire, you know.
Yeah,
well, you're going to have to change something.
Go ahead, David. Sorry.
You're going to have to change something pretty quick. You're not going to be able to say you're the best channel nobody's heard of, because your channel's growing pretty quick. So,
yeah.
He wrote that down. You wrote that down earlier, Dave. I definitely wrote that down.
No, actually, I didn't.
You rehearsed that. I'm just kidding.
No, I actually didn't.
Well, you're very good at on the fly. You have a freaking notebook. Hold on, one second. Jeff Harding. Now, Jeff Harding is he researches with the great Doug Hijack.
Wow.
And he is. You should check out. Well, Jeff Harding doesn't have a channel, but he is he has done. I did 3 episodes with him. His research is so extensive. This guy is doing a lot of different innovative stuff in the field of research that I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't even think of doing. But yeah, so he's a good guy. I have my encounter, his encounter and his research as a 3-part series on my show. If you ever want to check it out,
I definitely will. Thank you for that compliment, Jeff. I appreciate that.
Will, you were talking about a minute ago about them maybe swimming. Jeff, I don't think, can you see the comments?
Yeah, Jeff
said my first encounter was on an island in Manitoba. They can definitely swim.
Yeah, I believe it. Like I was telling Dave, I think Cornell, you were gone at this. I have a video where there was a fishing guide in Washington State where they ran into a Bigfoot swimming for the salmon. So there's a lot of encounters out there where the Bigfoot is swimming, and you know, it would be natural. Their brown bears dive underwater and all that stuff. So why couldn't a Bigfoot? And they're more like human, you know. So yeah, it would make sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. They definitely can swim. Alan Forbes. Yeah, being armed is the great equalizer for a human being, isn't it? Especially when I bring my kids with me to the woods, I think even Kerry Arnold won't even go to state parks after his encounter. You know, Kerry Arnold will, right?
Yeah.
And Bigfoot Odyssey after his encounter,
great
he won't
channel.
even. Yeah, it's a great channel, and he won't even go into the state parks. Well, he said he won't bring kids to the state parks, and I kind of will, because I don't think that there's much activity around here. But when I do, I bring
protection.
I definitely bring protection, even if it's just some freak, you know, who happens to cross your path, because those guys are everywhere.
Unfortunately, that's a time, you know, where we live right now in this time, you know, this age. It kind of sucks, but yeah, you're right. You have to be protected out here right now. So, especially out there in the West, where those huge, you know, you hear these stories about like the cartels and stuff in the woods,
Oh,
like
yeah.
growing dope and stuff like that. So, if I was out that way, I'd be strapped to the nines, But thankfully, I'm here in Ohio where those kind of things aren't as bad, I guess. So.
Since you started your channel, Will, has your opinions grown, changed, or anything due to the reports that you've collected and researched and what it might have been in the past regarding these beings?
Well, what has changed is the encounters that I'm hearing. Like a lot of times, the viewers will send in their encounters, and enlightens me or like opens my eyes to things that I never really thought about before. I've always believed, like I was saying, even before my encounter, I always believed that there was a possibility that these things did exist. Because of putting two and two together. It's not like a chupacabra or vampire. You know what I mean? It's something that literally could have been out there. And once I had my own encounter, it truly made me a believer. And then when I'm hearing from other viewers, it's like, yeah, that makes sense right there. Now, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes viewers tell me things and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know about that one. 20-foot tall Bigfoot, like, I don't know. But for the most part, people are genuinely telling me things that they've encountered, and it opens my eyes a lot, and it makes me more open-minded to these things, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Not in your latest Bigfoot story about the huge Bigfoot. How tall was that one? I like that story.
They said 10 to 12 foot tall.
Oh, okay. It wasn't that big. Okay.
No, and 1,500 pounds is what they said, but it was like hugely jacked up is what they were saying. And someone was telling me, well, that's probably just the alpha of the area, and could be true. Like I guess a male lion alpha is like the jacked up one. You know what I mean? If you see in Africa, why the other ones are the ones that are like running for their lives. Like, I better stay away from him. So it could be true that's
crazy though. Like 12 foot tall is twice my height, and for me to imagine something that height, I stand and look at a street sign or, something. My ceilings are, I think, 10 foot tall in this house, and for me to stand there and look at this thing, that is kind of hard to believe. You have to kind of like do a double take when someone tells you 12 foot tall. I mean, 8 foot, okay, but anything above that, and there are many reports of 9 and 10. It's kind of like when people catch fish and they say it was like a 5-pounder when it was really a 3-pounder. I don't know if there's a lot of that going on, but I mean, that's hard to wrap your mind around. 12 foot tall.
Yeah, when people
think,
go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead, Will.
I was just going to say, when people say stuff like 10 to 12 feet tall, I relate it to a basketball rim because I played basketball growing up. But then I think, you know what? There's a lot of animals that are huge that we don't get to see every day, like a tiger or a lion. Like when you see those things in person, you're like, man, that thing is huge. A lot bigger than what I would think in my own mind. So, you think about that when these people are saying, hey, this thing was 10 to 12 feet tall. You're like, it could be, because look how big these other animals are. So,
well, think the Kodiak brown bear in Alaska, they can get up 10 foot on their hind legs or over.
Yeah.
So,
that's times, go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just thinking out loud.
A lot of times what I think we do as people is we relate things to people size, things. Like we're not around people that are Shaquille O'Neal size a lot, I mean, I grew up with some 7-footers playing basketball, but most people aren't around those types. So when they hear the story, like, 10 feet tall creature, the doubters would doubt that because they're not around these huge animals or big people to see it for themselves. So in the back of their mind, a lot of people, I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of people, unless they see it themselves, aren't going to believe things.
I think the problem too is that we don't have evidence of these creatures, and that's the problem. We have evidence of these other huge animals, but like a 10 or 12 foot tall Bigfoot, we still can't provide evidence. And I think that's the sticking point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That they hear of these 12-foot beings, yet they can hide in the forest and nobody has a picture. I think that's probably the main reason why people, roll their eyes and stuff. And I don't know the answer myself.
None of us really.
and just how massively big something that height would be. Like Ray mentioned, Shaquille O'Neal. My son was in Oklahoma City last year, I believe, and ran into him up there, and he's like, "Dad, you don't realize how tall this guy really is. You know,
How big is he?
7 foot. He's 7 foot or a
Yeah.
little better, isn't he?
He was
Will?
7 foot, about 300 when he was playing. So I mean, he might have slimmed down a little bit now. I don't know.
No, my son was like, yeah, I mean, 7 foot tall is huge. So yeah, I think it's something 10 or 12 feet tall, that would just be.
It's hard to imagine.
Mind-boggling a little bit. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But this is my theory on it, guys. Like, I don't think there's very many of these creatures out there. Like, people say, "Oh, there's 20,000." No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so. I think there's like maybe 3,000 to 5,000 of them out there, and spread out through all of Canada and America. And to me, I think that they go ahead and travel a lot. You know what I mean? They're not like, unless they're up in some pristine area like in British Columbia or something where there's nobody. Like, but down here in America, I think they travel a lot. If you think about the male Siberian tigers, their like territory is hundreds of square miles, not like 10. You know what I mean? It's hundreds of square miles. So a creature like this, I think that they travel vast distances. And people are always asking me, well, if the government knows about this, which, I think they probably do, why don't they just tell people? Here's why: because the lumber industry, the hunting industry, all that stuff would be
State
done.
Parks.
It would be done. They would have to set aside all this land for those creatures, these endangered, like rare creatures, where all of that would be done. And so the economy would take a massive, massive hit. There'd be basically no more new home building. You know what I mean? Like, all that would be gone. Where are you going to get the lumber to do that if you have to protect all these forests and stuff? All the logging industry done. So in my opinion, go ahead, Dave.
The logging industry has always been, people have always put it in the conspiracy of the government hiding it. To me, it would be more related to the lumber industry.
Yeah.
Now, one positive, it may force lumber companies to be more responsible in their cutting. Maybe it put a stop to clear cutting, which I would be all for that. I don't know. I mean, that's just the cheap, lazier way to do it. I mean, do select cutting, take the trees that are ready, but leave the rest to grow, But yeah, I would definitely turn that upside down. I would think. Look what the spotted owl did up in the Pacific Northwest. That saved a lot of forest there.
Yeah. And that's a small area. Imagine a creature that travels hundreds and hundreds of square miles, right? Like, imagine that. Like, they'd have to protect all that land, and it would just, the economy.
But on the other hand, you may see, or unfortunately, what's happening down in the rainforest in parts of South America, where the ranchers that are clearing the forest are killing the natives that live in there just to get rid of them.
Yeah.
So we would probably run into something like that with the lumber companies.
Yeah, I agree with that also. I don't think until there's like concrete proof from a person, like whatever that might be, like blood or hair, or like even a picture or a video, people are going to be like, oh, that's fake. You could computer generate that or whatever. Until there's something really, really, really concrete, I don't think the government's ever going to tell us, yeah, these creatures do exist, until they are forced to do it.
This is a good argument right here, what this guy brings up. I can't read it. That is a BS argument. National parks and state parks were already set aside. That's a good argument. That's a good point. I think that could be true.
That is a good point.
That is a good point, but do creatures know that those are parks and they stay in those areas? I don't think so.
They don't.
Right. Like I don't think so. I think that they travel way far outside of those parks, and so if they're traveling all these different places, they're going to have to set aside a lot more land than just these parks. Like, literally half of Canada would become one big park, right? Or set aside. And a lot of the, Northwestern America also.
Now, Willstar, I want to go back to what Jeff Harding said. He wants to get in contact with you, and I will provide that contact. I'll send you an email and put you in touch with Jeff Harding. He's got a lot of good stuff going on, so that'd be a great contact for you.
Sounds good, Jeff. Appreciate that.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a discussion on the population there. Alan Forbes, so much evidence is crazy. Just investigate. And he believes there are more and a growing population of them. So, yeah, there are definitely a lot of opinions on how many of these things might exist. I personally think they're more rare than what some people think, but seriously, any of us could be wrong on this.
Yeah, we're all just giving theories on this. We don't know for sure. Now, another theory I have is they used to be a lot more plentiful before Europeans came and brought all those diseases over, like the diseases that killed off a lot of the Indians, right? Like there's, diseases can be spread to monkeys from humans and vice versa. So, and I'm not saying Bigfoot is a monkey, don't get me wrong, or an ape, but if it's a type of a human, those diseases could have spread to them. And if it's type of an ape, those diseases could have spread to them and knocked their numbers way down, right? That's just a theory I have also. Like maybe they were a lot more plentiful back then. And then just what happened to a lot of the Native Americans with the diseases could have happened to them also, And now they're finally making a little bit of a comeback.
I find that my own theory, well, this little fantasy theory I have is that when the Europeans came and they saw what happened to the Native Americans, they were more adept to living in the wilderness and they retreated, much like the Russians in the Eastern Front. They kept retreating and retreating and retreating, and they just stayed there, and while the Native Americans got diminished. I always had that thought, and that's just like a thought I have, when I think about these things, that they were not quite another tribe, but another type of hominid that could live off the land like 100% without building structures or anything. So I don't know.
If the native stories from the Pacific Northwest of them occasionally abducting a native girl and producing an offspring with them, if those are true, then they would have to be a type of a human to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And in another interesting thing you brought up, Will, about the maybe the diseases we brought over, taking a population of them out or a certain number.
Yeah.
That would lead me to think that, well, if that is true, then they would maybe be disposing of their dead some way, or there might have been more like bodies found and such, which would have definitely got some attention.
Yeah, and that's basically a human trait, right? I don't. Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that animals do that. I mean, I don't know if they do.
There are, I've heard in Africa, like elephant graveyards and stuff, where of course we know elephants are extremely intelligent, would go to a secluded spot to die, where others of their kind have. But I think with the Sasquatch, if the number is great at all, I tend to think that they would dispose of their dead in some way, whether they bury them or whatever,
Sure.
It's definitely an interesting thought,
Yeah, basically, we're all just giving our theories, right? Because there's
absolutely.
There's no concrete proof of anything that we say, So we're just trying to come up with our own theories of what could be going on out there, Until
we're throwing mud on the wall, some of it's got to stick somewhere,
Yeah.
So what do we got over here on the side?
Well, some people believe that what's his name that created the state parks, that believed in Bigfoot. What was that president's name, Dave?
Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, I think there's an argument that he believed in Bigfoot and he set aside the state parks. And he the one that created the state park system?
Yeah. He had his own encounter. He had his own encounter. And, he didn't see the Bigfoot, but he was with an Indian guide that wouldn't go through an area. And he said the Indian guide was just being silly. But one night around a campfire, he said he heard a noise, a vocalization that he could not explain. And Teddy Roosevelt was like a massive hunter, right? He spent a lot of time.
Naturalist for sure.
Yeah. And he didn't know what it was. And he was told another story, and I have this video on my channel by a trapper named Bauman. in
Mhm.
what is the Bitterroot Mountains there on the border of Montana
Idaho.
and Idaho, where the trapper's partner supposedly got killed by a Bigfoot. So he tells that story in his book, The Wilderness Hunter. So Teddy Roosevelt, to me, was a believer of Bigfoot, and like you said, he's the one to set aside these national parks. So 2 and 2, you know.
Yeah, it sounds very compelling. And when you argue with someone that totally doesn't believe in Bigfoot, which I never do because I don't blame them,
Yeah.
and that's one of the examples I'll give. When I first started in this whole Bigfoot thing, I would argue like tooth and nail. What are you talking about? There's so much evidence and blah blah blah. And the more I look into it, the more I realize actually there isn't that much, and I don't blame them for not believing in Bigfoot. Why haven't we got one single photograph?
Yeah. Well, see, I believe that the Patterson footage is authentic myself, because I don't believe that those cowboys back then could have came up with a costume like that had breasts, and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're saying, well, the guy admitted he was in a suit. No, he didn't. He doesn't even know how to get to the location. Like, people don't want to hear that, but that's true. He didn't even know how to get to that location where that happened. So
I think
to
it's
me,
highly probable.
yeah, to me, that's like the stamp. Like, yep, it's true. Because now I can't guarantee that I wasn't there, but
Right.
I would say out of all the evidence out there, that to me is the one that really reinforces it to me. Besides what I went through with my own encounter, that Patterson footage, like if you see it walking, like you can see the muscles when it stomps its leg vibrate. Like, you're not going to get that in a loose fitting suit.
Yeah,
like,
I did see that. I'm 50-50. I saw one. There's one famous shot of Patty when it's from behind her, and she's got her one foot's up. It looks like Captain Caveman, and her foot is white. People say it's a sand. I don't know. It's just very. Put it this way, I wouldn't bet my life savings on it. And if someone told me, if Bob Gimlin came out tomorrow and said, listen, I've got 24 hours to live, it was all bullshit, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
There are plans.
Bobby Short.
Patty was ambushed.
Somebody sent Bobby Short here. Now, Dave knows Bobby Short.
Well, Bobby Short died a few years ago. But back, 20 years ago, I never went and seen her personally, but I had many conversations on the phone with her at that time. And we talked about the Patterson film and all that. And there was never any word of any Bigfoot massacre of Patty's baby or whatever. I personally, and I know somebody will get mad at me, but I think that's a later fabrication. But I don't know who, but all Bobby Short ever said about the Patterson film was she believed it was authentic.
Bobby Short obviously had some dementia or something in her later life. That's what I'm thinking.
I don't know. I didn't have contact with her later on, but back in the late 90s, early 2000s, especially around the time that I helped the Travel Channel do Bigfootville, I spoke with her many times on the phone. And she told me about her encounter with a Bigfoot that she saw that was very emaciated, like she thought it was maybe sick or something. She said her first thought was that poor thing. She said it was very emaciated. But as far as the Patterson film, nothing about any being ambushed type thing. And I think that's a horrible thing, because some crazies even made death threats against Bob Gimlin over that. With what I believe is a complete fabrication, just to get attention. That's my thoughts on it.
Didn't they say that happened because they saw a flash on the film or something? Which basically it was just because.
I mean, it's just colors of the dirt and stuff. There's so many things you can do with that.
And I saw another person broke that down, and they're like, "Well, this flash occurs over here also, and it's not even. It's when they were looking at the prints." Like, another flash occurred like on the ground right there. Like, so it's in the film basically, and they're trying to say, "Oh, well, that was a gun flash." I don't believe it either, to be honest with you, Dave. I don't believe
it's in. Well, here's the deal too. And like I said, and there's so many And that's the downside, I think, of YouTube. There's some, as we talked about earlier, Will, such a competition to come up with the best story. But when the story turns into something that can lead to somebody getting bodily threats because they think that a man killed Bigfoot's baby, it's time to say, okay, that's enough of that crap.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's just ridiculous. And like I say, I've got people mad at me before by saying that, but that's what I feel about it.
Hey, we're all entitled to our opinions. If people get mad that we give our opinions, what can we do, right? Like,
right. And I don't even think it's an opinion. I think it's just, here's the deal. Roger Patterson, what he had in mind, hey, John Hodges, was to make money off of this. If he had a body, he would have brought that and made some money off of it. He was going to use, and of course he died before he could, but he was going to use money he made off of the Patterson, the film that him and Robert did, to go to Nepal to look for the Yeti.
Yeah.
So when I just don't think that Roger would have been hiding that if he could have, because I mean, what better way to make money than show up with the body of the Bigfoot's baby that you,
right.
Of course, I don't think they're saying that he killed them, but there was a squad of soldiers or something like that.
Didn't Patterson also go across America and have a fake Bob Gimlin? Bob Gimlin complained about that Bob Gimlin wouldn't go with them, so they hired somebody else, not hired, but they had somebody else go along with them that wasn't Bob Gimlin. I don't know if it's true.
I never heard that.
Yeah, apparently that's Bob Gimlin was pissed off about that. Now, what was I going to say?
Well, see, that makes me think.
Who to really ask about that would be Steinberg.
Steinberg is coming on next week.
Yeah, he would know. He is he knows those folks and all of that stuff. So
Steinberg is one of the people that I look up to in the Bigfoot field because I got a hair in my mouth. Because he, I guess that's good at 51 years old. It's a good sign. But he, or maybe it's a bad sign because it's falling out. But he totally discounts. Tree structures, and I do too. I can't get behind tree structures. There's no evidence. Well, there's no evidence for Bigfoot apart from people seeing them. But tree structures, no one has ever seen Bigfoot build a tree structure. And I have my own story where in my house there was a microburst that came through, and it affected like 10 feet wide of a 50-foot area. And it snapped 10 and 12-inch trees like twigs. I mean, they were like totally broken off. And it looked like a truck had run through this area. And you had just devastation. And this was only like about 4 months ago, in August, I think it was. And I'd never seen anything like that before. So this stuff must be occurring all the time in the deep woods. And people come across it and they're like, wow, look at these 8-inch trees are just broken in half. And these were new trees. They weren't like old, broken, like rotted trees. These were like fresh breaks. So, yeah, that's why I don't really go for tree structures. Or I think if you look at the latest, not the latest, but one of Para Breakdown's videos of tree structures, he shows you what people do in the wild to create a natural, what's the word for it, Dave? When people go out there and they make do with what they have in nature. Bushcraft, yes. And he shows you how people manipulate trees without causing damage to them. And then they put a tarp over it and stuff. It's just a stretch to say it was Bigfoot that did it, you know?
I want to address one of the folks in chat, Alan Forbes, is asking a lot of questions about the end of the film and stuff. Alan, if you get a chance, come on next Sunday. We're going to have Thomas Steenberg on.
Oh, yeah, baby.
And he would know a lot more about any of that than probably any of us here. So, yeah, definitely check that out. Thomas, he's from British Columbia, and he knows all those folks, knew a lot of them that's passed on. And that's the problem with a lot that has to do with the thing about people claiming that there was a Bigfoot massacre there, is conveniently they're all dead now, except for Bob Gimlin, who unfortunately, like I say, got the brunt of some of that. So anyway, I would, if you can make it next week, we're going to have Thomas Steenberg on, and he would be quite the expert on that stuff.
Yeah, Thomas Steenberg is like the Columbo of Bigfoot. He like, I don't know if he's taking notes or not, but he's sitting, is a cigar or a pipe? I'm not sure. He's like the what do you call that English Churchill? He's a Churchill. Yeah, he's a Churchill.
Yeah, but he's got a pipe instead of a cigar.
Yeah,
I wanted to address this on the tree structures. I would look at it like, and it might have been Leon that said, yeah, there are strange tree structures, but what is it that makes you believe that a Bigfoot might have done that to the tree? And I've seen some strange things with trees, and there are some that I even weigh as a possibility. But I try to do a process of elimination. Like if I found a tree broken over with Bigfoot's footprints going beside it, I'd have to say, hey, you know what? That is. Last year when I was doing some investigating on Livewire's property, now there was a branch on a game trail that we know that these creatures were approaching his house right there. And this tree limb, about like that big around green, and something had about 7 foot off the ground, twisted that around at a very unnatural angle, and nothing else around it was damaged. So that one was very curious, and we know that it was in an area where these creatures were approaching the house. So I put a high probability of that. But I try to see, is there other evidence around that would make me think that might possibly be. So it's one of the, I haven't seen a lot of tree structures that I could say, hey, that's a pretty good possibility. That's what it is. How about you, Will?
Well, I think if they are from these creatures, they would be like marking territory, like things like that. But I'm not sold on it either, to be honest with you. I see a lot of channels out there that every, tree that's broke, oh, that's a structure, and I'm just telling myself, like, what? Like that's probably just wind damage or something like that. But I'm not sold on it either. I know there's old Native American encounter stories about how they did have structures, and like they would turn trees upside down and stick them in the ground to mark their territory and stuff like that. But I don't, to be honest with you guys, I'm not totally sold on the tree structure thing. When I see someone saying everything's a tree structure, it just makes me like cringe a little bit, like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
and like you said earlier, Will, we are just throwing ideas out here.
Yeah.
None of it's to offend anybody or take anything away.
No,
if you have a instance of finding a tree structure or something like that convinces you that it may be caused by a Sasquatch or something, that's fine. But document your evidence. Whatever you see that you think may be evidence, document it.
Yeah. We don't know. Like you said, Dave, we really don't know the truth. I mean, we're just all speculating, I guess you could say.
John Hodges is responsible for the tree structures. He just admitted it. Pull him up there. This is my buddy from down Antlers. I don't believe in tree structures. I even break off limbs while walking. John, him and his wife had a possible Bigfoot encounter down in southeast Oklahoma, and I went camping with him in that area last spring. Actually, the month after Cornell was down. So
What
Yeah.
I always tell viewers when they're watching my videos, like, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. You know, I'm here to give you the encounter story, try to make it entertaining for you so you're entertained and you make up your own mind. I show you the locations. It's up to you to decide whether it could be true or not. You know, like, I'm not here to tell you, believe this, believe this. That's up to you. You know, like, you're a grown person. Well, maybe you're a child or a kid, but usually the people that are watching these are adults. So you can make up your own mind on what you want to believe or not. I can't make you believe anything, and I don't want to make you believe anything. You know, that's up to you.
But what do you
well,
believe?
and they're really.
What do I what?
I'm sorry.
What do you believe?
As far as the tree structures?
Well, everything Sasquatch. I mean, what is?
I believe that they're real.
What percentage? Well, you've seen one, so
Yeah.
you're 100%.
Yeah, yeah. So what you mean as far as the evidence that's out there? All right, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have a trouble with a lot of the things that are out, like that people try to put off as evidence. Like when they come across like a bear track that's two bears, and oh, that's a Bigfoot track. You know, like, okay, well, where's the other tracks? Like you have one track there. Where's the other one 10 feet away or 5 feet? You know, it's always just one single track. Well, not always, but a lot of times it's just one track. You know what I mean? And the tree structures, like a lot of times it's just a stretch, you know, like it's just really they're stretching to make people want to believe, you know. And like I said, I'm not the person that trying to make anybody believe anything. I'm just giving you the encounters, and that's up to you believe. I know they're real. I had my own encounter, but I can't make you believe that. You know, you weren't there, you know, so it's up to you to believe it. That's
I don't know
how
if you
I
can
feel
see
about it.
this. No, can y'all see that in the?
Kind of.
Okay, that would pass as a tree structure. Okay, until you think about where I found it. I found that in the middle of a park in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
So that's why my wife's like, "Why are you taking a picture of that?" I said, "I've got my reasons, you know."
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a process of elimination. All of it, and I could be wrong about a lot of it. And if I'm proven to be so, then that's fine. I'm not gonna lose any sleep. I'll just say, "Hey, wow, I was wrong about that."
Yep.
You know, there's not. And I've heard other people say there's not really any experts on this subject, and I don't think there is. And until we get a more solid, I don't know, a type specimen or something, I think we're all just throwing our thoughts out there.
Well, that's what makes it interesting. We can sit and do
Yeah.
our podcast on the possibilities, and that's why we do these things, and that's why Willstar does these things. He can show you areas that the supposed encounters happened in, and that's why you guys should check out his channel. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the more interesting Bigfoot channels out there because he actually does the work, and he actually does the whole Google Earth thing. And, you know, you can tell when people put time into something. It's not just, well, I'm going to read out a story here and I'm going to have a river in the background. But Willstar has actual, you know, a talent in Willstar is a great channel. And he will go and put the work into showing you where these things happened. And that for me is fascinating. Now, Will,
yep.
Tell me the story about the really big Bigfoot. That's been shared. I don't know if you know that, but that's been shared all over Facebook. That the really big Bigfoot. Now, was that someone that contacted you, or was that a story you heard?
No, somebody contacted me and told me about the story, and I looked it up and researched it and found the story. Now, that occurred in Washington State on Rattlesnake Ridge. There's this mountain range, kind of like this park, and it was called Rattlesnake Ridge where this occurred. Two hikers were, the one guy was like in college or something like that, trying to find rocks for his geology class, and they were going up a path, and they went off the path, and then they started following a creek, and they started hearing like slurping noises, and then they crossed a hill, and they said right there was the creature, and it was huge. And then they went into like a lot of detail. They said they stood there for like a minute and a half, like just frozen in fear, like looking at this creature. And they said it literally turned around at it in a defensive posture, like threatening him. So, it happened there, and they said it was a huge creature. It was 10 to 12 feet tall, and they go into a lot of detail. And I was really surprised at the detail they gave, you know. So that's kind of what caught my attention, all the detail and how big the creature was. And, you know, I was fascinated by the story, and I thought people would like to hear it. So I went on Google and I tried to find the location, and I'm like, there it is. Let me show these people where this happened and give them the encounter and see what they think about it. And, you know, people are really liking it.
Now, have you ever had a story told to you that you went to the location via Google Earth and thought that it was impossible? It's like, you know, there's no way this lines up to what they're telling me.
Not the Google Earth imaging doesn't do that, but sometimes the story themselves, you know,
right.
I had somebody say, you know, oh, I don't want to make anybody mad, but sometimes the story, what they're telling me, I'm like, no, I don't think I'll be making a video on that one, because I don't believe that one myself. You know, I have to believe the story myself, you know what I mean, to make the encounter, you know,
Yes.
like if I feel it's fake, I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean? Or if I think that it's more than like 15-20% chance that it's fake, like it's got to be like almost, in my mind, 100% like, yeah, that really, really probably happened, or I'm not going to make the video, if that makes any sense.
Yes,
like
it does.
I can't prove 100% that it's real. You know, none of us can unless we were actually there. But if I'm like skeptical about it, then that's going to come through in the video, right? Like they're going to be like, well, why are you making the video? You don't even believe it. So I stay away from those type of videos. I'm like, yeah, I don't, that's just too far fetched for me, you know? So I'm not going to do it. Maybe somebody else will do it. Maybe someone else has told that story already, but I'm going to stay away from that one.
Well, I have published a few stories on my podcast that I don't believe.
Yeah.
And they're still there.
Yeah.
Because I can't really say 100% that they're not true, but I have a feeling that they're not. And they're still on my YouTube channel, but I really can't tell if they're lying to me or not. But hey, I need content. And people can make their own minds up if, you know, it's entertaining still, but people can make their own minds up if this person's full of shit or not.
Yeah,
you know?
That's exactly right. I mean, some of the stories that I put out there, I don't believe 100%. Like I'm not like fully behind it, but like to me, like I said, I have to believe it than not believe it. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense to you, like I'm not going to put something out there that I'm like, oh, no way is that true. But anyway, I'm going to make the video anyway. You know, I'm just not going to do that because I don't think.
Pull up.
Go ahead. Go ahead, David.
No, go ahead. I was going to tell Cornell, pull up Chris Kimball's comment here about the descriptions that go against nature. Go ahead, Will, and finish your thought there. I just didn't want that to go away.
I mean, that his comment kind of goes along with what I'm saying. Like, I'm not going to, you know, like, I don't believe that they can just disappear and like go into another dimension, that type of stuff like that. I just not what I believe, you know, like, I don't think that can be true. A lot of people say UFO. I'm like, no, they're flesh and blood creatures here. I don't think they're aliens from another planet. You know what I mean? But other people believe it, and that's up to them, you know. But to me, that's just not what I believe.
Right. Now in Pennsylvania, there back in the late 60s through the 70s, I think still there were a lot of UFO sightings corresponding with Bigfoot sightings. Are they related or coincidence? I don't know, but that's Stan Gordon, a gentleman named Stan Gordon, wrote a lot about that and investigated. So, but yeah, I mean, what's the correlation? But yeah, like what Chris is saying, like the three-toed tracks down in Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, was it in Louisiana? Here years ago, where they had those tracks and they turned out to be fabricated by like the front of some fake feet made with the gator toes and then a human type heel or whatever. And I forget exactly which one that was, but it was a kind of a big deal there for a while.
Didn't the Boggy Creek monster also have supposedly 3 toes? Wasn't that?
Yeah, but that was the tracks that were found in a bean field
Yeah.
Down there during that time. Now, the tracks that I have heard of that come out of that area later were five-toed. The one I'm talking, Honey Island. There you go.
Honey
Chris
Island.
said that was a Honey Island swamp monster, and a lot of stuff's come out about it. Now, are there Bigfoot in that area down there? I'm sure there probably are, but those one set of footprints has turned out to be like a fake feet made with a cast of a gator's track on the front and then a heel in the back. But like resin cast on the bottom of a shoe, kind of is what
I read
Chris is
somewhere.
saying there.
I read somewhere those three-toed prints were also like crane bird. You know, the cranes. They were those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It turned out to be cranes, and so.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, when you talk about mistaking things and such as that, there are a lot of things that you can, mistake out in the woods for odd things. Like when Cornell was down, we found some tracks going down the middle of a muddy road that, they could have been. They weren't very big though, but it was very cold, and they were, we perceive them anyway to be barefoot tracks going through there, but not enough that I poured plaster in one.
Have you ever found any prints that you did plaster cast though, Dave?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. I haven't seen that. I got to check that out. I haven't seen it.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to advertise a little bit. I have finished writing my my next book, and it's I'm sending it chapter by chapter over to my editor right now to get it formatted to upload to ebook and then get some paperbacks. And it'll be about some of the more interesting to me anyway, cases involving Bigfoot that I've investigated over about the past 20 years. And Cornell's in it too. I put him in there so it'll help sell the book. Anyway.
Nice.
I don't know why,
but yeah, the area that he and I went to, I've been investigating there for the last 20 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
After investigating a sighting by a man on horseback down there in like 2001 or two, anyway, early 2000s, and I've been going back there every year since then. And there's a very long chapter that would have made a small book in itself that's going to be about all of that. And Cornell being there, me and a friend of mine that's looked into that area for many years too, plus some that I investigated in other areas in southeast Oklahoma, as well as the casino footage deal and all that. So hopefully that'll be ready by Christmas.
Yeah, the night that
that's my advertising.
There you go.
Yeah, the night that we spent in Oklahoma in the Comanche Mountains was the second day we were like just walking around, and the place got so quiet. It was like so dense. The quietness was almost like oppressive. It was that kind of silence. It was like, and I'm from Northern Ireland, and I always say this, it was before a bomb goes off, and I've witnessed a few of those. And the silence has a denseness to it, and that's what it was like that day in the Comanche Mountains. And we all commented on it, and we had like spring peepers, I think, I don't know, going off, but
little frogs that come out in the spring. We call them spring peepers.
But that night we went up to the campsite, and it was so damn quiet. And then we all went to sleep, and I was woken up at 3:30 in the morning by this thing. It sounded like two legs. So, someone commented, I think it was Steve from Curious Cryptid, said that it could be something on four legs walking really slow, and that is a possibility. That definitely is a possibility. I'm not saying it was a Sasquatch, but man, this thing was like crunch, 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 and it was like very loud. And I woke up. That woke me up. I don't know why it woke me up, because I was in a deep sleep. And I take sleeping medication, so I usually don't wake up in the middle of the night. And I was terrified. I was totally terrified, and my heart's racing and stuff. And it probably heard me stop snoring, because I snore when I sleep. So it probably heard me stop snoring. So then I probably got out of there. And I yelled for Dave, and they all woke up, and we looked around and couldn't find anything. And, then I'm like, I'm not getting back into the tent. There's not a chance in hell. So I slept in the front of Dave's truck. I pulled the sleeping bag over my head because I'm like, if there's something out there, it's going to come back into the campsite. It's going to put its face in my window, and I'm going to be forever. I'm going to have PTSD for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I just pulled the sleeping bag over my head, took another sleeping pill, and just went to sleep.
That's how we were at the cabin when we had our encounter.
Terrifying.
Yeah, we pulled the blinds down. I didn't want that thing looking in, the cabin, because at night when you're inside, you can't see outside, but they can see everything inside, and I didn't want to look over at that window and see that thing looking in like that. So the blinds went down that night. That's for sure.
And as if Bigfoot in southeast Oklahoma was not controversial enough, we've got Chris and John discussing whether the Sasquatch would be Oklahoma Sooner or Cowboy fans. Brings a whole other element.
Oh my god! Squatch Talk just
he's a Buckeyes fan.
They could be live, but I'm not going to say anything. Yeah, nothing. I don't want any controversy. Squatch Talk is going live, and I just don't want to create any controversy.
But yeah, what's funny is when Cornell, I'll attest to the fact he wasn't fake. He was very terrified, the word he used. But the way he said he's not getting back in the tent, it was just so matter of fact. He goes, I'm not sleeping in that tent. That was it. He was going to get in the back of my truck. I said, Cornell, the back seat's full of stuff. He goes, I don't care. I'll sit in the front seat, and he did, and
but that doesn't mean that it was a Sasquatch. It means that I was terrified.
Yeah.
That's the fact.
Yeah.
But
and that's very good that he says that, because I think a lot of people would, after putting the circumstantial evidence of the noises we were hearing and the other stuff going on, plus the past history of that place, a lot of people would just conclude, well, it had to be a Sasquatch.
Right.
Now, I think there is a high possibility that it could have been, because whatever it was left that area very silently. It did not make any noise. And there was a boulder field all the way up the side of this ridge that it had come down, and a lot of dead leaves and stuff. I would have thought it would have made, like say if it was a deer or a bear or something like that running away, I think it would have made some noise. I've been down there when a bear gets startled, and a bear, and of course we got black bear down here, but they can be very quiet when they're approaching, but if you startle one and they're getting out of there, they don't leave quietly.
Yeah, they're just trying to get out of there. Unlike a Bigfoot, a Bigfoot's trying to cover their tracks and be quiet and silently get away.
I mean that's what was that?
Sorry, it was a Squatch Talk. I just wanted to see if it's
you want to go on that show now?
No, it's not live. It's already
tired of us, Dave.
no, Squatch Talk is very. They're a bunch of skeptics, and they try to debunk everything. And I praise their efforts. It's a good thing, But they piss a lot of people off, and I've been associated with them because I was there live one night, and I pissed a few people off just because. At first I talked a lot of shit about them because they pissed me off, and I'm like, these guys are dicks. They're saying shit about people, but then I listened to the show, and actually they're not being dicks. They're just talking about stuff. They're leaving it open, and. I might disagree with some stuff, but they have a point. That kind of thing. They call out
healthy skepticism. Healthy skepticism is a good thing. I mean, we don't want to just believe everything everybody says.
No.
Well, that
But
too.
at the same time,
plus
don't
sometimes
get offended when somebody does disagree.
Plus, sometimes they can be dicks, but that doesn't discount
We've all
what they're
got our
saying.
moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But I'll tell you what, man. Will, he's the only person that I can honestly say threw a stick at Bigfoot.
Oh,
hey,
he was
man.
the one that threw the stick.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, that's why I'm thinking. Well, he
get
gave me permission to share a story on my YouTube channel. I thought, what I'm going to title it, and I'm like, I'm just going to title it. He threw a stick at Bigfoot.
I was going to say who's the other guy that threw the stick on your channel?
It was me. It was this guy right here.
That was him.
It was a mixture of being afraid, being scared, and being mad, like because it was scaring my girl. You know what I mean? We had plans that night, and she was like, "Yeah." So I'm like, "What in the world?" Because like I was telling you guys, like, there in the back of my mind for a minute, I'm like, it might be a person, right? And then until I saw how big it was, like behind the tree, but I was still mad, like anyway. And at that time, that was before I was really into Bigfoot, so I wasn't like when the occurrence happened, I was like, oh, I got to go get proof. I got to go do that. That wasn't what was on my mind at that time, guys. You know what I mean? It was more like, you're messing everything up for me right now. We're trying to have a good time. And, hindsight's 2020. Like right now, if I would have been there, I would have been like, man, I'll run after it. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like if it happened right now and I didn't have a cell phone, maybe I'd run after it and try to like grab some hair or something. I mean, I don't know.
You know what I mean? This fiance, are you married to her now, or did it fall apart?
No, we have a beautiful daughter, but
nice.
It didn't work out so much, but
that's okay.
Yeah.
So how tall are you, Will?
I'm 5'10".
Okay, so
that's why I didn't make it in the NBA or nothing like that. Not tall enough, vertically challenged, but 5'10". And but I played, like I said, a lot of basketball against people on my team that were 7-footers.
I think Dave's 5'10" as well.
I know how to judge people.
5'9", 5'10", somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's me too, Dave. 5'9", 5'10". I stretched to 5'10", 5'9" maybe. It depends.
Well, I became 6 foot in Ireland, which is quite tall.
Wow.
In Ireland, 6 foot is tall.
Yeah.
But now you've got these kids that are like, my son, I think, is going to be like 6'2" or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is it with that, you think?
I don't know.
I mean, it's off subject, but like
my father was
I'm a boxing fan. I mean, look at the heavyweight category. Like Mike Tyson, he was what, 220, 224 when he was fighting? And now the heavyweight champion the fella from England, Irish guy, Tyson Fury. He's
Tyson Fury.
No, he's like 270. And Deontay Wilder that he fought, he was right up there too. Those guys are so much bigger now than the heavyweights were 20 years ago.
Mike Tyson's pretty short though, right?
I think but still weight-wise, though, he was still in the heavyweight division. But you look at it now, the heavyweight champ now would outweigh him like 70 pounds or so.
Yeah.
Or well, not 70, but 50, 60 pounds. That's a huge difference to what. And height-wise, Mike Tyson's what, 5'10", something like that?
I think so, 5'11", maybe.
Maybe 6, where Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, they're crowding 7 foot. They're way up there. So
yeah, people
are getting taller. Maybe it's the steroids in the meat we eat and stuff, you reckon?
Yeah, milk and
they're putting in water.
Here you go. Coin 777, HGH in livestock.
Could be. Human growth hormone.
What does HGH mean?
Human growth hormone.
That's why chicks have bigger tits.
All the dairy, huh?
Yeah. Excuse me, but
my gosh.
I think as people evolve, they're getting bigger. I guess I'm not too sure. I mean, but George Foreman was a big guy, right? Like Muhammad Ali was probably pretty big.
Yeah, they're pretty good size, but not not like 6, 7 or so, like these fellows are now, you know.
Well, I think that those guys are just failed basketball players, and they're like, well, I got to make some money somehow. No one's boxing anymore, so let me start boxing.
Boxing is back. Heavyweight boxing is back.
Finally, but there for a while, not so much, you know.
So, but anyway, well, does anybody out there have any questions you'd like to ask? Hey, there's my buddy Malcolm there. It's in the food, all the hormones and steroids in the feed. Yeah, we're talking about that. Does anybody have any questions you'd like to ask Will while we got him on here?
Yeah, Will's going places. His channel is going to take off. He's had a lot of interest in his channel since he started, and that's because of his hard work. And I respect that. I just go out there and I take a video in the woods and talk a lot.
A lot of people like that though, Cornell.
I know, but I'm lucky if I get like 200 views. I don't really care. I find it fun, but you know, you put the work in, and you know, you're seeing the fruits of your labor. You know.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a cool channel. Cool channel.
I do put a lot of. I do put a lot of work in these videos. There's hours and hours and hours of editing, and you know, if people don't really understand how you make a video, they wouldn't understand what I'm trying to say. But yeah, at first it's the voiceover, and I got to go back and take out all the, you know, the breaths, all that kind of stuff, and then finding the right music and the images, and then on top of that, trying to find the Google location sometimes takes me a long, long time, guys. Sometimes it tells you go up Route 30 and a half a mile here and 10 steps here, and that's really easy, right? But sometimes I just got to follow clues, literally I'm like looking at these screens for hours, like looking and searching and scrolling, and like, oh, that's what they're talking about. Oh, okay, now there's the other clue. Oh, so you got to put it together, and finally. And then another thing, I won't tell you this is the location if I don't know that in my mind almost 100% that's the location. Now, if sometimes I won't be able to find the exact location, like David was talking about that Albert Osman incident, because he just says, "Oh, I went 35 miles northwest or whatever," and that, you know, there's no way to pinpoint that. But a lot of these encounters, I can literally pinpoint the location, and I'll show it to you with like an arrow, or like I'll go around it with the Google Earth and show you the mountaintop or whatever it might be. So yeah, it takes me a lot of time to put those, you know, a lot of work to find those locations sometimes. So I appreciate it.
Here's a good question here. Ramona Nelson said, "Is Will going to make a documentary?"
Yeah, I probably will. I'll probably go visit where my location, you know, my encounter happened at that location in the spring, and I'm probably going to spend a weekend down there, and you know, down there in southern Ohio, and I'll visit the Salt Fork, area also, and put one together for everybody, because other people have been asking me that too. So yeah, Ramona, that's probably going to happen. And if I can ever get an invite from Dave and come down to Oklahoma, I might go down there.
Oh, well, we can't show that location though.
Yeah, if we brought you down here, would we be on Google Earth with you saying, "Hey, by the way, here's where these guys are"?
No. See, so
you'll be blindfolded, man.
That's another thing. I've had people give me their encounter and say, "But I don't want you to show the exact location." So what I'll do is I'll show like a 10-mile square area. You know what I mean? But that doesn't happen very often, because I like to show more pinpointed area where they can see the location. You know, but once or twice somebody's asked me not to show the exact location, so I'll just show like, you know, not random, that's the wrong word, but general location of that area. So
well, I purposefully somebody asked me on Reddit and gave me a lot of shit why I couldn't name the location where Dave took me and where I had my encounter, but I purposefully don't pay attention because he doesn't want the location to be public,
right?
So I don't know where. I have no idea where Dave took me. I could show you the Kimechi Mountains, but that's it. But out of respect for Dave, I will not even record it in my head.
Well, when we got down there and I unlocked the trunk and let Cornell out,
I was blindfolded. He was like going back to his law enforcement days.
You had
I was
ear,
blind.
yeah.
He
Ear protection.
sprayed me with mace before we went down there. He tased
Spun you
me.
around 20 times.
Yeah.
Oh, brother.
That
Yeah.
was fun.
Like I said, if anybody asks,
look,
go ahead.
In fairness, it's not like some top secret location that nobody goes to. It's just a location that I've investigated Bigfoot sighting at that happened a long time ago, and I've had some very interesting things happen down there. And I've done this long enough where you let a location out where things like that are happening, you're going to be looking somewhere else, because there's a lot of people down here into this stuff, and they'll be trampling around everything.
Yeah.
And anytime, if you keep up with, you get a hot spot where Bigfoot sightings have been taking place, you get floods of people coming in. They go somewhere else. They don't want to be around us.
No.
And they'll go somewhere else. Somebody said, Will's, where is it at here? I think Will just, where'd it go? I think Will was just laying out the Minerva monster story location.
Yeah, I showed that location to everybody. I've done that one on my video also. So that one's a little older video, but yeah, I've definitely pinpointed that location and showed you the strip mine and all that other stuff where this Bigfoot was supposed to be, you know. That was an interesting story. There's some things in that story where I'm, I was like, what? Like, I didn't really, that's one of those things where I believed 85% of it, but that other 10%, I'm like, because in the story, he says him and his friends jumped on the back of this when they were kids, like, and it threw him off. And I'm like what?
Yeah.
Like, are you serious right now? You know what I mean? But the other parts of it made me think, in all the other eyewitnesses to the story, I was like, well, all these people can't be lying. Like, but the one guy said that they jumped on the back of it as kids and it just threw him off. And that part of it was like, I don't know about that so much, But I did show that location. Go ahead, David.
Now, Malcolm, he said, as far as location, state of Oklahoma is the location, southeast Oklahoma is a pinpoint. And that's very true. You could go pretty much anywhere down into Pushmataha, LaFleur, McCurtain County, and any of those wilderness areas in there. Get away from people, you have a good chance, as any of running into something. John Hodges from Anything Outdoors. John's got a good outdoor channel as well. Y'all check out if you get a chance. Did you make Cornell the comic relief in your new book? Actually, no. We have fun talking about this stuff, but Cornell's very serious when we're in the woods there. He brings good equipment. He's very attentive, I guess you will, to what's going around. He brought some really good recording gear last March and picked up some really interesting things that we did not hear ourselves. And he, picked it apart when he got back to Massachusetts. So, he's really cool to have around for sure.
But I make them have a laugh.
Helped a lot. Well, yeah, him and my son got into this big music conversation about what country contributes good to rock and roll, and all of that. What was your deal with Imagine Dragons? Do you like that band?
No, I don't. I was asking him what the deal was. My younger cousins are into them, and it just sounds like everything else that's being produced nowadays. And I don't get it, but that's fine. If I don't get it, it's because I'm like a Gen Xer, and I wanted him to explain to me what the whole thing was about, really.
Fivehead.
Yeah.
Fivehead asked if anyone ever had an experience of two different investigative research parties scaring each other. I think that could easily happen at a popular spot.
Yeah, that's why Dave doesn't give his thing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times people are going out into the woods like that. They are armed. And I don't like out in the woods with anybody that's armed that I don't know their firearm discipline and stuff like that. I mean, there's so many things that could happen if you get people that are scared or jumpy in the first place run into each other. I mean, there could be some horrible things happen, and we sure wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. And I could see that happening down around say Honeby, where they have that big Bigfoot festival every year.
Yeah.
And there are literally tons of people showing up down there now and walking around in the woods all around that little community up there and down there in the mountains. So yeah, that would, there's possibilities there.
All right. So anyway, guys, we got an hour and 40 minutes so far. So,
well, Will, anything else you want to say?
I appreciate you guys inviting me on. I was going to ask you guys, what do you guys think the prerequisite of the areas are that these Bigfoots would be in? What do you think that they need? Like woods, water, and the food? I mean, because a lot of times people are telling me like, oh, I've seen one in the desert. Like, you didn't see a Bigfoot in the desert, man. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it has to be somewhere like where there's water and there's forest and there's plenty of food around. So, So what do you guys think on that?
I think the main thing, well, obviously there needs to be water and a food source.
Sure.
But as far as trees, whatever, I'd say lack of an abundance of people for one.
Yeah.
Be the main thing, because I don't think these creatures do not want to be around us.
No.
That's why the vast majority of I'll say credible sightings that I deem credible, the person sees it and it's going the other way, or doesn't stick around for very long.
No.
So I think the main thing is the remoteness, and certainly now trees, you would think, but like the casino footage episode, which I investigated, that was sitting out on the prairie pretty much, except for just scattered small sections of woodland. And of course there's a river that runs close. Its river bottoms are heavily wooded, but this thing had to cross quite a bit of open, just really open, treeless land to get to that casino, to go try to get into that grease trap, So
I think they're also pretty curious. Like I said, with my encounter, I believe, now I don't remember the wind direction that night, guys. I'm not going to pretend that I did, because I don't. But I think that maybe it smelled that food that I was cooking, and it came up that draw, attracted by that food. You know what I mean? Like the food, the ribs and stuff that I was cooking on the fire. And, I've always also heard stories about people just being around a campfire and walking up to the tree line, just curious. So I do agree that they want to stay away from people, but I do also believe that if they're in an area where there are people and they know that there's not a lot, that they will come and check things out, and try to be quiet.
The curiosity factor.
Yeah.
But I don't think they want open interaction with us.
No, I don't think so
either. We don't really see much of that. Now, one of the people in the comments, Coin777, says, I don't agree that all of them want to be remote. And I'd love for you to elaborate on that. I'd like to see your thoughts on why you think that, respectfully.
I believe that they have to use those river bottoms or those creek bottoms to travel. Like, or if there's if there's no forest around for them to travel through, they have to use those creek bottoms and river bottoms to travel. Now, I know another channel that always says, oh, they love to walk on the top of ridges. I don't believe that at all. I mean, if they're on top of ridges, if there's anybody around, they could see them, right? I mean, maybe they'll cross that ridge, but I don't think they're literally traveling on that ridge all the way across. I think they try to get down lower into, because a lot of these encounters that I'm researching and finding, they're like coming out of these creek beds or like river bed, you know what I mean? So they're down low where they can hide. They're not like up in the open, but so I think that they use those for a lot of to move back and forth, the creeks and the river bottoms and things like that.
and they seem to be heavily nocturnal as well, and that's a good time that they could cross. Like the Ramona Nelson over here said, California deserts have a history of sightings. 29 Palms, Edward Air Base. So yeah, your nighttime. I mean, you're under the cover of darkness then. So like the deal on the prairie I was talking about, it would cross those open fields in under cover of night. And Coy says, yeah, they approach too many farms. That's a good point. Chris says, when I was in the Army, they told us not to walk on ridges. Okay.
Yeah, not like Band of Brothers. You can't walk on ridges.
Yeah, you can be seen on the ridge line. And I think that's what Will was pointing out there.
Yeah.
So, that's a good discussion. Not everybody's agreeing, but everybody's having a good discussion. I highly encourage that.
I think these creatures have an innate ability to understand, to stay away from people. They have to stay hidden, and they know, well, if I'm up here and everybody can see me, that's not going to do the job. I need to get down low and in the woods or literally through this creek bottom or whatever to travel. I think they just know those things. Like
and
animals
again,
know.
take into consideration, like animals too. Maybe some of the younger ones are not as good at concealment as some of the ones that are older and more experienced. Just like people or so. And I do lean myself. And again, I can be 100% wrong on this, but through my study of this subject, I lean towards them being another type of human, or at least very closely related to us. Just simply because just an ape or something. Yeah, I think if they were just an ape of some kind, we'd have one in the zoo by now.
I do too. I
think they require a lot more intelligence. A lot of people popping in over here. Malcolm said a lot of sightings near power lines, and Coin 777 was talking about migration, basically. Are they approaching farms? Malcolm points out a lot of sightings near power lines, which I know Mark down there at the live wire station, him and his son saw one cross a high line cut real close to his house there. And I personally saw and photographed pretty good footprints there on that high line cut in the mud too.
I think that they'll use those power lines, but in an area where they could quickly duck into cover. Like they're not. I don't think they're going to just strictly stay on a power line the whole way. I could be wrong about that. Like we said earlier, we're just all giving our own theories on this. We don't. We
absolutely.
Don't know for sure. Yeah. And another thing, go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Will.
I was going to say, and another thing, like you hear some people saying that they're all nice, or some people saying, oh, well, they killed people and look at all the missing people that go missing in the wilderness every year. I think they have different personalities, David. Like people do. You know what I mean? Like some of them would be benevolent. Some of them would be mean and evil. And you wouldn't want to run across one of those. So I think that they have different personalities also. Even dogs have different personalities.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just like anything. And I think that's not even a stretch. That's just makes perfect sense. Yeah. Now I will, and this is something I've said pretty much every time I talk to somebody about it. They're talking about how dangerous they are. Yeah, anything of that size and stealth and obvious strength has potential to be very dangerous. But I think if they as a species were out to get people, they've proven themselves very bad at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now I go back to the theory, not the theory, but the thought of all the people that go missing in the wilderness every year. There are a lot. Like you can mark up a lot of those to like mountain lions and grizzly bears and whatever, like just someone falling off. Yeah, just getting lost. But how do we know that a percentage of that isn't like, a mean Bigfoot or Sasquatch? We don't really know that, That's just a theory, though. I don't have any way to prove that right or wrong. I'm just, in my mind, all these people going missing, it could be that they're running into the wrong types of, Sasquatch, or the ones with a personality you don't want to run across. Because there are stories. Go ahead. That's what I was going to go to.
In native folklore, there's different descriptive words of them, like up in the Pacific Northwest, the Sonoqua that, they said would steal children,
Right.
And eat children and stuff. You had the cannibal giant Gilliuk up in Alaska. You had the Champay down in Mississippi, in the Choctaw people. You could go on, the stone giants up north, So yeah, there are that, but then the more benevolent as well, So yeah, I think that's a good point. Just like any other creatures, some of them not want anything to do with us, and some may wonder if we really do taste like chicken.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Or elk or whatever else they're eating at the time,
or whatever. But I will say this: when I do a lot of solo camping. Cornell can tell you that. I've never not gone because I'm afraid that a Bigfoot may drag me off into the woods.
Sure.
I go prepared. I carry a firearm, just more for if, like I've said before, a criminal element show up and be up to no good. I want to be able to defend myself.
Yeah.
Against that. But as far as the wild animals down here, I'm not too worried about, and that includes the Sasquatch. They outrank us. Respect should be a priority. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're bigger.
Yeah, this Lives of Flyway said if it wanted you, there's not much you could do against such a thing. And I think that's very true. As stealthy as these things can be, some kind of hybrid lion, gorilla, human cross. Oh, LOL. Okay.
Yeah, they're so big that if they, like that commenter was saying, and they wanted you, they're going to run you down and rip you apart. There's really not much they're going to be able to do about that. So I wouldn't want to run into one like that. But I'm like you, David. I don't go into the woods afraid. Up here in Ohio, we don't have mountain lions. We don't have grizzly bears. We have a few black bears, but they're really, really rare. So there's really nothing for me to be afraid of, except for, like you said, a criminal element. So I don't ever go into the woods where, like, oh my God, looking around like, oh my God, something's about to get me. And that never really crosses my mind. But out in the Pacific Northwest and places like that, up in, British Columbia, they have to worry about those things a lot. That's got to be on their mind. I'm not saying that it would happen to them, but once again, all the people that go missing in the wilderness every year, something's happening to those people. They're not all getting lost, Well,
I think it falls under the same thing with like tree structures we were talking about. Yeah, there are tree structures, but what leads you to believe that a Bigfoot did it? Yeah, there are people go missing, but what is the evidence to say Bigfoot done it? The Hotch or Hoach, whatever over here said, you think Bigfoot have a code they live by? Hard to believe they look for confrontation. Has anyone found the remains of a hiker torn apart? Well, not by a Bigfoot, by a grizzly bear or something like that on occasion, I think. But
yeah.
And he was talking about black bears being rare. We have them down in southeast Oklahoma here. I've seen one in the wild twice, and neither time did they stick around. They headed off the other direction just pretty quick.
Guys, I have to go.
Okay.
Well, you're in a spaceship. You can go wherever you want.
Han Solo.
I know. I'm like,
Chewbacca's calling.
I'm your father. No, Steve Coles has a conversation going on now with who did we have last week?
Leon Thompson.
Leon?
Yes, there's a big conversation going on right now, and I want to be part of it. So before it closes, I want to get over there and give. They're talking about. They're saying that. I don't want to say it. I don't want to be controversial, but.
Come on, spill the beans.
How many people are going missing in the woods every year? Do we know the statistics? I do not. Do you, Will?
I don't know the statistics on that. I mean, I could look it up and make a video on it.
I think it's fudged.
Yeah, you think it's more than? I mean, not as many as people are saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go, life is a flyway there. You can check your state's missing person. I think that's probably public record.
But the state parks don't keep records, so
I'll tell you
hard.
what. There's a park here by my house, and it's just a local metro park. Okay, it's not really wide, but it's narrow and long. I know some rangers down there that I talk to when I go down there, and they tell me that they don't report the murders, not the murders, but like there's a lot of suicides and people going missing, and they don't report any of them because they don't want people not to go to the parks.
You're right.
So, things are happening out there that sometimes we don't get the information on, So
yeah, and that's
but a lot
why.
of them go ahead. A lot of them are suicides.
That's why what's his face started the whole thing on it. 411. What's his name?
Politis.
That's why David started the whole thing, because they don't report suicides and missing people in the state parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely got some strange cases that he's looked into, especially
Life is a flyaway, Ohio.
But the ones that really get me that David Politis has investigated is like there was one of a little boy that went missing and turned up like a good ways off through a barbed wire fence and over in some snow somewhere and was okay. And like, how did he get there? There's a lot of us like that. They're pretty not Bigfoot related at all, just very mysterious, So, yeah, that's a different deal. Where you at, Will? Okay,
I'm by Cleveland. I'm by Cleveland is where I am. See the Browns? I'm by Cleveland.
Yeah.
So someone says they've seen a black bear in Ohio. There are black bears in Ohio, but they're becoming more and more. But there's not a whole bunch of them.
They're most of the time pretty shy.
Yeah.
Hey, here a few months ago, one showed up on somebody's security camera in downtown Ada, which is the town that I work at. I'm 30 miles from there, but right in the middle of town, coming up trying to get in somebody's dumpster.
Wow,
and you're getting more towards east central Oklahoma there, so they're actually moving further west. There's
actually supposedly mountain lions moving into Ohio, but I don't believe that one yet until there's documentation.
Yeah, there are mountain lions here in Oklahoma now. They're not abundant, but I've seen one. Me and my daughter saw one across the road in front of us about 3 years ago, not even a mile from my house here.
Wow.
Those would cause me more concern than a black bear because they're sneaky critters,
Yeah, they are.
But,
yeah, they are. They're natural predators. Cornell looks like he wants to go.
Yeah, I gotta go.
He just wanted to get in the middle of something. No.
I'm such a gossip.
Hey, Will, man, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you guys inviting me. Appreciate you guys inviting me anytime.
If you haven't already, check out Will's channel, Willstar. He's got some good stuff on there, and he does a great job on his videos. And Will's been a help to me. He's offered suggestions to my poor ability at filming that has been a help to me. So
doing great,
appreciate that.
You're doing great, bud.
Anyway,
check out Willstar. I'm going to put some links up. I'm actually going to put a link up to Will's own encounter at the end of the show when it processes, which is like 24 hours. So look out for that.
Malcolm says, enjoyed the void.
Nice.
I like that. All right.
All right, guys. See you later.
See you later. We know where Cornell's going.
Good night.